Okay, thank you, Senior Pastor, for this, I would say, wonderful opportunity. It's my very first time to minister this time. I've been ministering the morning devotion, and I thank God for each and every opportunity. I always believe that God has always a purpose in each and every one, and each and every field, in each and every area that He has entrusted you with. And I'd like to thank also each and everyone who has joined this evening for the word, and for those people also joined. We thank God for them as well. And as we continue praying to God that so that He can answer our prayers and needs according to His purpose and will. So as Pasi she has already introduced, today we are focusing on overcoming fear. I know to some extent maybe this is not it's something that you've encountered, or you've maybe interacted with it, maybe at your level, different levels, maybe at different levels of teachings. And the way she has said that for this week, and someone is, we are going to focus on what fear is, in detail, to see what fear is and where fear comes from in our lives, we as believers in general, and also in the biblical perspective way, and also to see be able to see that how fear enters into people's lives, and how fear affects destinies, affects our next moves, how it paralyzes the impact of fear, then mostly the negative impact of fear in our lives. So we'll have two parts, and the first part will deal with will be more of dealing with understanding of fear and its root, and then the second part will deal with how believers practically can overcome fear and walk in victory. So our main scripture for today, chapter 41, verse 9 to 14. You'll see that where God speaks to the people through prophet Isaiah, whom we'll see that they were overwhelmed, they were discouraged, and they were afraid. So I will read from the NIV version, Isaiah 41, 9 to 14. It says that I took you from the ends of the earth, from its farthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. All who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. So you search for your enemies, you will not you will be as nothing at all. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Do not be afraid, do not be afraid, you warm Jacob, little Israel, do not fear, for I myself will help you, declares the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. So from that script, I will come and we'll, as we continue, look more on that script to see under which what was happening, and when the people of Israel were discouraged. That's when the discouragement, the overwhelming, they were afraid. It all created the aspect of fear. And this topic of overcoming fear, it's a process. It's a process that involves different aspects that we are going to look at. Just maybe to give you a recap that we last week I remember we had a conference at Fountain Gate that was led by Apostle James. So I will not go into the details of what we discussed during the conference, because it was a men's conference and here we are in general. But I would love to share what became the greatest takeaway. And the title of the conference was Slaying the Giant. And one thing that I came to realize is that we as human beings, we all face different giants in our lives. Whether you are teenage or a youth or an adult, whichever gender you are in, there are different giants that we face in our lives. And in this context, a giant was described as one thing or those things that we constantly struggle with at a personal level. It could be either internally or even externally, but this one thing that sometimes you struggle with. And today, I want us to look at this from the general perspective, in terms of now whatever we were looking at that time, it was on men's side, but because here we are both men and women. So I want us to look at this giant, these struggles. What are these kind of struggles that sometimes we face as both men and women? Because these are kind of giants that we face, and every one of us has a certain giants that we are battling in life. For some, these struggles may differ. They may differ or may be categorized under maybe specific criteria like age. We find that maybe a certain age group may be having this struggle or this giant that they face in their life. Maybe this kind of struggle that they face in their life. Maybe, for example, we give it an example of maybe a teenage, basically maybe they're in school, they're at that adolescent stage. So you find that there's this kind of struggle that it's categorized within the teenage level. The youth as well. You find that, for example, the youth, they might be going this kind of struggle, or this is kind of giant, as I put it, within their age bracket. So, for example, if you select youth, you find that maybe youth, if you categorize the age between 23 and 30, these are people that have finished school and they are preparing maybe now to go into the job market. So, if there's one thing that we find that they are facing is now job hunting or lack of jobs and so on. So, it can be categorized within the age. It can be categorized within by gender. You find that now for us, we are looking at those genders that affects those things that men struggle as men. I also know that there are those things that even women struggle based on the women's side or the women factor. There are those also this struggle, this giant that sometimes we face. They also sometimes can be categorized based on the environment. The environmental factor of the environment or the geographical location. Sometimes you see, if you try to relate, for example, in Kenya, when you go to the northern side of Kenya, we find that one of the things that people struggle there with, a lot of them, is that the poverty. So we find that poverty is also this part of the giant that also people face. So it could be as well be categorized even within the environment or the geographical location. Sometimes even the experiences can be categorized based on the experiences, even the social status. And what may be a giant to one person may not necessarily be a giant to another person. Whatever maybe you're struggling, you individually, sometimes it's different. It might not be the same with the other person. So we struggle differently. We have this struggle that we struggle differently. Sometimes they are the same, but maybe from a different angle. And some people are silently fighting these battles that nobody even knows about. You sometimes struggle them internally. No one even knows that you are struggling this thing, because sometimes we tend to cover them out, unless there are things that maybe they are these struggles that maybe they can be seen from outside. But majority of them will find that they are inside. Sometimes we hide them. From outside, people cannot tell, but from inside, you find that you are going through such kind of struggles. And others carry the fears, even the wounds, the pressures, and the struggles behind their smiles. You find that they are smiling, but internally or deep inside, even you as a believer, you know that maybe you are struggling through something. And some of these giants that we face as human beings. There are several of them, but I just try to list a few of them so that we will come and narrow down to the fear. So some of them, there are sicknesses. You find that maybe there are this kind of sicknesses that you always face, or maybe you suffer from, or maybe every time that maybe you've been diagnosed with such kind of sickness, that you will find that each and every time you have to be under medication or maybe under thorough checkup. There are things like poverty, as I've mentioned earlier, things like traumas, failures in life. Maybe you've been failing most of the time. For example, maybe when you are doing your business, you're starting a business, it fails again and again. The peer pressure, the family conflicts, the financial instability. That is one of also major giants that we face even as human beings, the stresses in life, the addictions. So there are several. There are several. Even fear. Fear is now one of those even the giants that we face in life. And but today I want us to focus on one giant that affects almost everyone at some point in life, and that is fear. Fear is something that you find that it affects everyone, and there is only that we handle it differently, and that's why you'll find that you will tend to see somebody maybe doesn't show the aspect of fear in them because they have gained this courage, this braveness in them. That's why they have been able to encounter it. So it's kind of a process. It's kind of one of the giant that affects almost everyone in our lives. So my topic is overcoming fear. And overcoming fear, as we said, it's a process. So for you to say that one has courage, he had to, this person, he had to, maybe to some point of his or her life, he had to beat this fear for him to be brave. And that's why you'll say that it's a process. Now it's a process for you to come at a point whereby you have to beat this fear in you, for you to become this courageous person or this brave person. And the reasons as to why I decided to focus on fear is that in most cases, those you see those giants that I've mentioned above there, the trauma, the family conflicts, the anger, the poverty, the depression, the doubt, and so on. So in most cases, you'll find that fear originates as a result of those major giants that I've mentioned. So if I give an example, you find that, for example, the fear that are generated from failures. So maybe you in a business context, you started at the first business, it failed maybe, and maybe things didn't go well, it failed, and then the second one, it failed. So you get to a point whereby you now have this fear in you that will try to prevent you from now even thinking to try the third time. So we find that fear has originated from the failures that we have encountered in our lives. I find even, for example, rejections. Sometimes fear originates from rejection. Maybe you are rejected to some point. Maybe you had applied for a certain job, or maybe you send your CVs and you just realize that your CVs never go through. They're being rejected because of one, two, three things. So you find that you get to a certain point that you have this fear that now, because of the rejection, you fear now to continue applying for jobs because of the fear that because of the rejection that you received maybe at the beginning. So you find that majority of these giants that we face, they're the ones that results to fear. So meaning that when you handle fear, when you handle on how to overcome fear, you are basically handling all these other giants that we face in life. And you find that fear has stopped many people from progressing. It has been like a stagnant. Sometimes you find that because of your business failed, so you end up now maybe because of fear, now you end up maybe pausing or maybe stopping yourself from trying again. That's why you're saying that fear has stopped many people from progressing. It has paralyzed a lot of things. It has killed the dreams, it has killed the opportunities, the confidence, and even the faith that maybe you had. It has caused people to even doubt themselves and even doubt others, and even sometimes even to doubt God because of just of what you experience in your life that created or originated this fear in you. But the question remains is that how do we overcome fear, more so when it's the result of these other giants? How do we overcome? Because if it's a result of these other giants, it means that there's a root cause. There's a root cause of this fear that you find that for you now to as a believer to experience this fear that we have in our lives, there's a root cause. Now, how do we overcome this fear? And the first thing that you need to ask yourself is that what does the Bible say about fear? And in the book of 2 Timothy 1:7, the word of God reminds us very clearly and says that for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. What does that mean? It means that God never created us to live under fear. He created us to walk in faith, not to walk in fear. He created us to walk in courage, to walk in confidence in Him, knowing that His word is a strong pillar for our lives. His word is a reference to our lives, so that whenever we go through things in life, whichever situation that you are in, whichever season that you are in, whichever things that are there, these giants that you're going through in life, that they are the ones that that are making you to have this fear. To know that His word is there to support you, to strengthen you, to give us support as a baseline for us. It's like a framework for us. So it's there. So meaning that God has not given that. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but He has given us the spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Fear is one of the biggest giant every human being faces. And you all know of Nelson Mandela, the former South African president. You remember how he fought for the freedom of his country, and even he once even said that fear is the oldest enemy of human progress. It will prevent you from progressing. It will stagnate you. It will paralyze, because it means that whatever fear makes it does is that it prevents you from making that step. It's like you have to make another step to move forward, but now you hold it there. So meaning that whenever you hold it, that means that you are now stagnant. You've paused. You're not moving. You're just where you are. So that's why you say that fear. That's why you say that fear is the oldest enemy of human progress. It's not your master. It's like it's your mirror. It shows what you must overcome to become the person that you are meant to be. And no one was born brave. We became brave when we overcome fear. That's when we become brave. It's an elevator. You elevate from fear to brave. So you become brave when you overcome fear. In other words, we refer to fear as the invisible battle. Most of the time, it's the invisible battles we fight within ourselves. Sometimes other people cannot see from outside. Sometimes there are those that maybe can be seen from outside. Maybe if you've gone to maybe interviews and so on, so somebody can read from outside, maybe through shaking, maybe not being confident. But sometimes majority of them, you find that it's an invisible battle that sometimes people may not be able to realize or tell. And fear has the ability to weaken our faith, to destroy our confidence, paralyze our destinies, and also make also people doubt God's promises. Many people smile outside while silently inside they are fighting fear. So fear did not and does not originate from God, and it's not. God is not the creator of fear. God did not create us to live defeated. He did not create us to live worried. He did not create us to be intimidated or to be hopeless. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. That was Nelson Mandela. He said that, and he said that the brave man is not that he who fear. That's the brave man. The brave man is one who conquers the fear. Even great men and women in the Bible, they're in the same. You find you will go on this part one. We are going to look at those the men in the Bible that we know that they also faced fear, and how they were able to overcome, and how God was able to help them through to overcome this fear. The likes of Moses, likes of Peter walking on water, and so we'll be able to look at those cases. So in the midst of all this, it's always we still ask ourselves that why do people experience fear in life, and what causes fear among the believers today? What could be the thing that causes this fear? And can someone still have faith? Because this can someone still have faith and still struggle with fear? Because this is something that we as believers that sometimes people or somebody from outside will expect that a believer when if you have faith and you're a believer, you have faith. You're not supposed to struggle with fear, but we still find ourselves in that situation. Why? And that's why when I read the first scripture, it was from the book of Isaiah, chapter 41. We see that in the book of Isaiah that God spoke through the prophet Isaiah to the people of Israel, and at this time, Israel was going through the difficult seasons, fear, the uncertainty, the weaknesses, and the oppression from the enemies. and the pain of exile. And the people felt abandoned, they felt vulnerable and even discouraged. But in the midst of all that, God came and reminded them that, you know what, I've chosen you, I've not rejected you, I'm with you, and I will help you. So it was this scripture is like it's therefore a message of what? It's a message of comfort, the strength. He was trying to give them the comfort, the strength, the assurance that I'm still with you. The same thing that comes to us, that God is still with us, meaning that even whenever we go through all these, that we should always know that God is still with us. We still have the divine protection, the restoration of confidence in God. God was reminding Israel that the situation did not change his covenant with them. Even though they looked weak before the nations, God still called them, you're my servant, you're my chosen. And this message speaks to the believers today that even if you are discouraged, you're anxious, you face these battles, these giants, these struggles that you face, the one that leads to fear. You feel forgotten or overwhelmed. Just know that God says that I'm still with you. I'm not forgetting you. You're my chosen. So, part one, we're looking at overcoming fear, understanding this fear, understanding this giant, the fear. You've seen that fear originates from these other giants that are there that we face in life. So there's this fear that comes from guilty of our past mistakes and sins. We're going to look at different roots of fear. So there's this thing that we'll be categorizing them. I mentioned a lot of them there, but we'll be categorizing them according to the category. So the first one that we're going to look at is the fear from guilty of our past mistakes and sin. And with this one, to elaborate this more well is that I will use the story of Moses in this scenario. And the story of Moses, I will read from the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 6 to 10. Exodus 3, chapter 3, verse 6 to 10. But before I read that, I would like to give a recap of what had happened before now going to continuing from Exodus chapter 3, verse 6 to 10. So if you all remember that, remember when Moses fled from Egypt and settled in Midian. So where he worked as a shepherd, taking care of the flock of his father-in-law. He was called Jethro. So one day as he was leading the sheep near the Mount Horeb, he saw a burning bush. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in the burning bush, and then that's when now. Then God told Moses that not to come near closer, and instructed him to remove his sandals because of the place he was standing was holy and ground. And then that's when he revealed himself that as the God of Abraham. So that's where the scripture starts. So I'll read the Exodus chapter 3, verse 6 to 10. It says, Moreover, he said, I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And then the Lord said, I've surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and I've heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them from the land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression which the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Now I will pause it there. So you see that now God is telling Moses that I will send you to Pharaoh, that you bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Now remember that when I was starting, I was starting. I said that Moses had he fled away from Egypt too. And then when he found that and the Egyptians, so on the second day he fled. So in Exodus chapter 2, verse 12 to 15, it reads and says that so he looked this way. So this is Moses. So he looked this way and that him in the sand. So this was when he was walking. It was on the first day that he was walking. So he saw the Egyptian and the Hebrew, they were fighting. So he killed the Egyptian. So that's when the scripture starts and say that he looked. So he looked this way and that way. And when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, two Hebrew men were fighting. And he said to the one did the wrong, why are you striking your companion? Then he said, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? So Moses feared. That's what the Bible says. So Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. When Pharaoh heard of this matter, and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So the reason why Moses fled is because that he feared for his life, because he had killed the Egyptian and this thing had been known. And now Pharaoh was even looking for him. That's why he had to flee. And now here, when we come to chapter 3, we now find that now God is sending Moses back to Pharaoh to tell him, go bring my people. In fact, he didn't tell him, go and sneak and get out with the people. He told him, I'm sending you back to Pharaoh. He fled because he feared the fear that was clearly seen that something wrong. In fact, he even feared even before that and he knew that because he had killed laws, so at the burning bush. Moses had already made a serious mistake in Egypt. And the Bible tells us that Moses killed an Egyptian after seeing him mistreat a Hebrew man. After killing him, Moses hid the body in the sand, hoping nobody would know what had happened. But the following day, when the two Hebrew men were fighting, one of them asked Moses, do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? And at that moment, it was when Moses realized that his secret was no longer hidden. And the Bible says that Moses feared. Fear entered Moses because of the guilt and because he knew that he had done wrong. He became afraid of Pharaoh, afraid of punishment, afraid of facing the consequences of his actions. And as a result, Moses ran away from Egypt to Midian. Now imagine this moment years later, the same Moses who ran away from Egypt in fear, the same Moses who escaped because of guilt, the same Moses who thought his story in Egypt was over. God appears back to him in the burning bush and says, come now, therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh. This is powerful because God was sending Moses back to the very place he feared the most. The place of his failure, the place of his shame, the place that's connected to his past mistakes. And many times fear works the same in our lives. Sometimes people fear moving forward because of what had happened in their past. A person may fear serving God because of the mistakes they once made. Someone may fear returning home after disappointing in their family. Someone may fear starting again after failure. Others fear facing people because of the guilt, because of the shame, maybe because of even the hidden mistakes. Fear born out of the guilt makes people run away, makes people hide, makes people isolate themselves. makes people feel disqualified. And a very good example is the story of the prodigal son. And when you read in the book of Luke chapter 15, verse 11 to 24, you see that after wasting all his inheritance in reckless living, the prodigal son the prodigal son reached at a point where he had nothing left. And before going back home, he really struggled internally because guilt and shame had taken over him. So he even prepared a speech saying that he was trying to prepare a speech trying to saying that how you go and say it. He said that I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Why? Because the guilt had convinced him that he no longer deserved acceptance. That's how he felt, that he no longer deserved acceptance. He had to go back. He thought of now going back home, but he felt that he no longer deserved acceptance back at home. But one beautiful thing that we will learn this evening is that from the prodigal son, that the father was still waiting for him. The father did not reject him. The father restored him. And in the same way, God did not reject Moses because of his past. Instead, God still called him and used him and gave him an assignment. Mistakes can produce the fear and guilt and shame. You know that maybe you did a certain mistake. Maybe you did something back, even, for example, at home, or maybe there's a place that you are. And this sometimes even works at our workplaces. Maybe by the time you are moving from your previous workplace, maybe you did something bad. And at times, I remember that there's a time that in the camp that I was working sometime back before, there's a time, when people are quitting, people quit in different ways. When you quit jobs, sometimes people quit, okay, maybe you've gotten a green pasture somewhere, so maybe you resign. So during the parting, sometimes a lot happens. And what happens that sometimes you find that maybe you party in a good way, in an agreement way. Maybe sometimes when you party, maybe you feel that maybe the organization will say that you didn't give enough notice that you are going, so we're not going to pay you. Sometimes people party in a different way. You find that somebody doesn't write a resignation letter. Somebody just wake up in the morning, decide not to go to work, and proceeds. So I remember there was this case that there's this employee who left. She didn't leave, she left, but not in a good way, as per how I can put it. But sometimes, you know what, they always say that whenever you leave somebody, or whenever you leave a place, always try to leave with a good reputation, because most of the time these are the people that they will be used as your reference in your future maybe careers or jobs. So this person went to the other job. I think after some months and so on, things got tight. I don't know, maybe things didn't go maybe as how she had been promised. So the hope was for this person now was to come back, because she didn't have another option. The only option that she had now was to come back now to the previous company that now she was in. But remember, now when she parted, she didn't part in a good way. You see, so you find that now going back, you will have this fear of going back, because now you know very well that maybe if you go back, they can take you. But you remember that the way you parted, or the way you did a mistake and so it's you realize that you didn't part in a way, you didn't resign in a good way. So you find that this fear comes in you. So you find that you even going back, it will take a lot of energy for you to make that step of going maybe back to go and tell them that I did this and this. I think I'm sorry. Whatever I did, it wasn't a good way. Yes, maybe whatever I went, things didn't work well. And maybe I was thinking that, can I come back? Good thing she was considered. I think the boss wasn't that too personal. I think it's somebody who understood, and because she also asked for forgiveness. So this just reflects the same thing that even in the life of the prodigal son, that sometimes you find that you live somewhere, or even where you're working, even in our families and so on. Sometimes there's those mistakes that you find that maybe you did, and it has created this fear, this guilt, this shame. And sometimes the greatest battles that even people fight are even internal battles after failure or even sin. Fear, it causes the people to run away instead of facing God. Moses fled to Midian. The prodigal son stayed away from home. That's what fear does. And God is not limited by our past mistakes. When Moses failed, God still saw a purpose in him. Your past does not cancel God's calling upon your life. What disqualified you before men does not necessarily disqualify you before God. And healing begins when we stop hiding and responding to, and we respond to God's voice. Moses answered when God called him. The prodigal son decided to rise and go back home. God can send you back stronger to the place where fear once defeated you. Moses returned to Egypt not as a fugitive but as a deliverer. So that is one root of fear that comes from the guilt of our past mistakes and sins. There's also the fear that comes from our weaknesses. We all know that we are all human beings, and we normally say that sometimes each and everyone has his own weaknesses. But God still chooses people despite your weaknesses. With this one, we'll sorry, we look at still the story of Moses, but it's on the continuation of now when still in the burning bush when God had appeared to him, to see how God still chooses people despite their weaknesses. And this one will read from the book of Exodus, just Exodus chapter 4, verse now 1 to 8. And maybe just to give a narration of what had happened. You see, now after God had called Moses at the burning bush, now and he had told him to go back to Egypt to deliver the Israelites, and Moses still struggled with fear and doubt. So Moses began questioning himself and wondering whether the people of Israel would believe that God had truly sent him. So at that moment, God decided to show Moses that you not send him empty-handed. So he showed Moses two signs, and one of the signs was that God instructed Moses to throw the staff on the ground, and miraculously turned into a serpent. And then he also instructed Moses to place his hand inside his cloak. So when Moses removed his hand, it had become leprous. So these signs would help the Israelites, to help the Israelites to believe that God, the God of Abraham and Isaac and the God of Jacob had truly appeared to Moses. Now, so I will read from Exodus chapter 4, verse 9 to 15. Now, the story now continues of now Moses still near the burning bush. And they say that, and it shall be, if they do not believe these two signs, the signs of Moses' staff turning into a serpent, and also the hand becoming leprous when he put his hand inside his cloak. So he said that, and it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on the dry land. The water which you take from the river will become blood in the dry land. So that was now the addition of another miraculous sign, that if they don't believe on the two. Now we proceed. Verse 10 says that, then Moses said to the Lord, oh my God. Now remember, after those three signs now, but Moses comes and tells God, oh my Lord, I'm not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. So the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will sorry. Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say. But he said, oh my Lord, please send the hand of whomever else you may send. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And look, he is also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he'll be glad in his heart. Now you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth. And I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. So you see that after God had already shown Moses the signs and assured of his presence, Moses still focused on his weakness. And Moses said that I'm not eloquent, I'm slow of speech and slow of tongue. In simple terms, Moses is saying that God, I cannot speak well. I'm not confident. I'm not qualified for this assignment. This shows us that the fear often makes people focus more on their weakness than on God's power. That's how sometimes our weaknesses that sometimes we have generated this fear that comes in our life, so that even if you are missioned or you have this purpose that you are supposed to attain in life, it becomes challenging because we focus more on the weaknesses than on God's power. Moses was looking at his speech, was looking at his limitations, his insecurities, and his inadequacies. But God was looking at the purpose, the assignment that he had, and the potential inside Moses. That's what even God will look at. You have this weakness that you have it, and is one that is trying to generate all this fear in you. But God looks at it inside you. He looks at the power, at the ability that He knows that you can accomplish. And many times in life, we behave exactly like Moses. God opens a door, but fear reminds us of our weaknesses. God gives us an opportunity, but fear tells us that we are not good enough. We are not educated. We are too young. We are too old. We cannot speak well. People are better than you. Maybe you see that this thing that you always believe that somebody else of this maybe caliber can only do it better than you. You feel that you will embarrass yourself. Fear magnifies our weaknesses until we begin doubting God, doubting what God can do through us. And some people fear even starting businesses because they feel inexperienced. This one cut across everyone. Majority of the people find that there are a lot of there's a time that we used to say that we find that somebody was saying that the ground is the richest place because ideas have been buried inside. When people die, they're buried with ideas. And we're trying to relate this to the context of, you find that people sometimes have ideas of even maybe starting businesses and so on, but they will always come a fear that in you that will prevent you from doing it. Fear of failure, the way that we said, a fear of feeling that no, you are not the best. Maybe there's somebody else, maybe somebody who has this money, or somebody who maybe has this kind of status is one that can be able to achieve this business. And that's why you'll find that some people have fear to start businesses because they feel inexperienced. They feel that they are not the best people. They feel that they are not the ones. Maybe somebody else can do it, and that's where we find ourselves. You've we've stopped. We've paralyzed. The fear has paralyzed our movements, our next steps. Serving church, sometimes you find that, and one thing that you find that fear sometimes has gotten into people, even in serving in church, feel like maybe you're not better in serving in this area. But what I always know that with God is that He has gifted each and every one of us in each and every category, or maybe based on the ability, based on the experience, based even on the education part of it. You can serve in each and in any of the department, maybe depending on how you are based on. So sometimes fear is what has pulled us back. It happens. I remember there's a time that Mr. Arthur was even saying that when you come to the business sector, you find that when you are in business, there's that aspect of always marketing your business. And whenever, for example, you are even if it's you're marketing to corporates, even if you are marketing to direct clients, you find that sometimes you have these ideas, you have this knowledge, but sometimes when you're going to present it, because of the fear that is there, it has killed the confidence. So you find that the manner at which you will present, it will disqualify you because of the fear that is there, but the idea is there. But what you need is the confidence. Now, unless you find that, and that's why you'll always find that God is there, and the word of God is there to help us. And when you speak of the word of God, you find that even we find that in business, that's why the other aspect that always comes in strategic partnership. Remember, I was listening to a certain new from Apostle James yesterday. He was saying that you find that in a business, I think he was using the example of Mount Kenya University, find that even in a business, you find that you might start this company, but you hire people who are experienced in different sectors. That's why the strategic partnership also comes in. So you find that you'll be able now to bring people who are experienced in these sectors so that they will help you to grow your business. That's why you say that don't let fear be a stagnant in terms of you can't move because you feel that you're not experienced so much in this area, but there's a way that you can partner with people. And when you partner with people, they will help you to grow your business. So do not limit yourself. Applying for jobs. Sometimes people fear applying for jobs because of rejection. That I've said it, and it happens. It happens all the time. Sometimes you find somebody tell you that I've applied for more than 100 CVs, but I've not received anything. So they fear applying again and again, or pursuing dreams because you think you're not capable. And that's why the Bible, and that's when we look at the story of Moses, we see that God asked Moses, "Who has made man's mouth? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say." That reflects on the book of Isaiah, the main scripture that we started with. And God said that I'm with you, I will not neglected you, you're the chosen one, and I will continue being with you. That's why you see at Moses' story. And this is powerful because God does not always call the most perfect, the most talented, the most confident people. Many times he calls ordinary people so that his power may be seen through them. Throughout the Bible, we see that God used people with their weaknesses. He used Moses, who struggled with the speech, used Jeremiah, who thought that he was too young. Yet God still used them to attain his purpose. And another beautiful thing is that even when Moses continued resisting, God still provided help through Aaron. And this teaches that God understands our human struggles. That's why you'll see that God will always use you, even if you're not good at something, but he knows that you have this idea in you, and then he will link you up with somebody that we will partner with. Sometimes he strengthens us through people around us, through the friends, through partners. So always know that fear makes us to focus on our weaknesses instead of God's strength, and God does not call only the perfect people. Your weaknesses does not cancel God's purpose in your life. So whenever you feel that you're weak on something, know that you can overcome it. Or know that if God was for Moses, Moses was not eloquent. He said that I will put my words in your mouth. I've given Aaron, he'll be there, he'll speak for you. Same thing. Let us know that fear that you always have because of this and this, because of your weakness, because that you're not eloquent, because you see yourself you're not the best, because you feel that you are not educated that enough. Know that God is there. He will put words in your mouth. He'll be with you. He will connect with you, a strategic partner that who will help you to overcome all that. God equips people that he calls. And God gives an help. Sometimes the greatest limitation is not even the inability, but it's fear. And God can use ordinary people to do extraordinary things. So from today, we should not stop disqualifying ourselves before God, as even spoken in the final word for our lives. In Isaiah, he said that I have chosen you and I have not rejected you. When God caused Moses to go and deliver the Israelites from Egypt, Moses did not see himself as capable, strong, or qualified. Instead of confidence, Moses was full of fear. excuses and self-doubt. So the man that God chose to speak before Pharaoh was afraid of speaking. The man that God had chosen to lead the nation, he had doubted himself. But it reminds us that there, His word is there to strengthen us. He chooses people because of His grace is sufficient. Many times we disqualify ourselves because of our fear of our past, our mistakes, lack of education, our weaknesses or insecurity. Feel unqualified so that His power may be seen clearly. The other aspect of fear that I would like just to touch through is the fear to focus more so much on the outside. On what Peter, just a quick one I read from the book of Matthew 14:24 to 31, say that wind was on the sea, and when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It's a ghost," and they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come down of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw what the wind was boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out and said, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" See that another aspect of fear that we see in our lives is the fear that is caused by the external noises, the things that are happening around us, that they distract, these distractions, they distract us, they discourage us, they weaken our faith. The disciples were in the middle of the sea, and the Bible says that the boat was being tossed by the strong wind waves because the wind was contrary. It was already difficult and frightening situation. And then when Jesus came walking on the water towards them, instead of recognizing him immediately, they became afraid and thought he was a ghost. But Jesus spoke and said that, "Do not be afraid, it's I." Then Peter did something extraordinary. He said that, "Lord, if it is you, command me to walk on the water." So Peter stepped out of the boat and began walking on the water. Now this is was already doing the impossible. He was already water about the normal thing. He was when he saw the wind, he was afraid. Entered his heart and he began to sink. This teaches us something very powerful, that sometimes fear is not caused by what God said, but by the external noises around us. Peter was fine when his focus was on Jesus. The fear came when he focused on the wind, on the waves and the storms, and the noise around him. And this is exactly what happens in our normal lives. Many people will start their journey well. They will start businesses with faith, begin ministries with passion, even relationships with hope, pursue even dreams with confidence. But along the way, external noises begin speaking louder than God's voice. And these external noises may come through negative opinions from people, criticism, social media pressures, the bad news, the financial difficulty, the family pressures, absorb them. They make you doubt. Then it creates this fear. Ever since somebody has this fear, has never maybe tried something, but because of the fear that is there, it makes him even to lose or even not to start something. And a very good example of this is something that So I'm a football fan, and I support Arsenal. And there's one thing that maybe for the people who are the lovers of football, they know that yesterday Arsenal lifted the cup. But there's something more than that. than just lifting the cup, because it's for over 22 years since they last lifted the cup. But something has been developing in between, and you find that in football, there's a lot of things that sometimes you look at the consistency. Sometimes we find that season that they don't perform well. And also there's competition. Football is more of competition. Sometimes there's competition. That's when, for example, when you come in win in our market, find that sometimes people will sometimes people relate competitions as your enemies, but sometimes the enemies are always there to make you better. But one thing that even as an Arsenal football fan, there's something that I learned over three years ago, that you could find that we were sometimes you find that as a team, the team was performing well, but sometimes because of the noises. So you find that the noises around, sometimes because of people doesn't want to see you excel. So people will create a lot of noises, maybe find that each and every team, even if you're going to meet with a team, a small team, that team that you know that this team will beat, you'll be able to beat this team thoroughly. But because of the noises that people have brought in even before the game starts, it creates sometimes a certain fear in the team, so that even if they go to play, find that it affects their results. When instead of winning, you end up even losing or even a draw. So sometimes you find that, and it got to a point whereby even the players themselves, when they were being interviewed, they were saying that at the moment where we've reached, we are not listening to any kind of noises from outside. We are focusing within ourselves. So those all noises that they are coming from outside, you don't listen to them. They just come pass. Yes, we'll hear somebody saying, but you're not internalizing those noises, because those noises sometimes are there to distract you. And that's where you'll find that when the enemy will be there to distract you from achieving a certain thing. And because maybe people will create a lot of noises, a lot of fear in you, and these noises they will create a lot of fear in you, in the sense that you will not be able to achieve maybe where you're supposed to go. So as a believer, you need to know that there are these outside noises that the wind that you see that Peter focused on. And that's why he began to sing. The same thing that we find that the negative opinions from outside, what people say about you, what people say about certain religions, certain communities, certain people living, maybe certain gender or and so on, the criticism, the social media pressures, the bad news, the family pressures, the failures, the rejections. Always know that you need to focus. When Peter was focusing on God, on Jesus, he was not sinking. Saying that it means we as Christians, we need to focus to maintain our focus. Sometimes people are progressing well until someone tells them that they cannot make it. Then they gain fear from there. Friends discourage them. Society pressures them, and so on. So these are things that you find that as Christians, we need to, as believers, we need to know that every voice around you deserves your attention. You cannot walk in faith while you're constantly feeding on fear and negativity. And the challenges around you do not mean that God has abandoned you. So because of time, I've just looked at the three aspects whereby we were the three roots of fear. That's why you've seen that: one, fear from the guilt and the past mistakes; two, fear from the weakness and insecurity, the weaknesses that we have in life; and also three, the fear from the external noises and distractions. So the fourth one is the fear from trauma and painful experiences. This is also a deep sector that we'll look at it next week. And also that's when we proceed now to the second part 2, which now will deal how we believers can practically overcome fear and walk in victory. So before I end, I would like to end with a word of prayer. Then from there, I will hand it over to Pastor